What is up, YouTube? Welcome to Universal Strength, where we transcend today for better tomorrows. In today's video, I'm going to take the time to show you some of the connections that I've made in regards to cryptocurrencies and these certain companies that are kind of changing the world. So I'm first going to just point out a few companies and organizations, I should say, in order to be able to sort of spark an interest in you that would make you maybe go down the road of looking into it for yourself. Every article that I post here that I feel that's important, I'm going to leave in the description down below. And if you feel that this is something that might be really important and something worth your time to look into, I really invite it. Once again, in no way is any of this financial advice. Ultimately, this is just something that I'm curious about, something that I'm very interested in, and hoping that if there is an opportunity that is equal or if not greater than the Industrial Revolution times, or when we were building railways, or the first time that we started mining gold, if there is something that is equal to that financial opportunity, ultimately I would really like it and prefer it for a majority of individuals to be able to experience it if it really does create financial freedom. I personally believe that the more people that are financially free, the more giving they are. If they aren't feeling like they're bogged down and restricted by finance, then they are going to be willing and more optimistic to assist in this world. So hopefully this is something that is good, and ultimately I'm not here to judge whether it's good or bad. Anyway, let's get into this. All right. So the first company that I want us to look at is the World Economic Forum. They run a little gathering that's called the Davos Agenda. Essentially, this little gathering is something that only a select few of world leaders are able to attend. Ultimately, it comes down to, do you have enough money? Can you afford to do it? And yada, yada, yada. Essentially, what's really interesting about the World Economic Forum is that they've played a role in the G20 narratives, as well as the United Nations narratives, as well as the IMF narratives. And one of the things that they've said that's been kind of eye-opening, that leads to great curiosity, is what is called the Great Reset. So I've taken the time to put up some videos here. This is the first time that I saw the Great Reset. And there ended up being like an hour-long or 2-hour-long documentary that they had posted about it. This is just a little short video. And in the documentary, what was really interesting is Prince Charles was actually speaking in it. And that was kind of the first time that I've ever seen like a connection between something that's very thought-provoking, right? Like the Great Reset. Like, what does that even mean? And when you look into it, it's basically a reset of all the economical, social, political values, and just starting over, essentially. That's kind of the idea that you get from it. And so Prince Charles was in it, and he was talking about it. And so I was kind of excited because ultimately this sounds really good. Like, when you look at it on paper, it all sounds great, and it's kind of like, okay, well, it would be awesome to have people have equality, more financial security, the ability to travel in and around the world and educate themselves in any way that they want. Like, I mean, there's just so many things that they talk about that would be so beneficial for the country, for the world, I should say. My own prime minister was quoted talking about the Great Reset in a particular video, which just really, as time went on, I just started to see more and more that there's this big connection to a lot of my world leaders and the World Economic Forum. And so when I started to see that, when I started to listen to the language and started to hear the way that they were speaking, what was really surprising is that then I started to see this where is it here? I started to see this pendant. Sorry, guys. There it is. So I started to see this pendant in and around on like the news stations. I started to see it people would be wearing it in little pins. So this particular little pin right here that this guy's wearing. And then, well, crazy enough, it actually ended up being built in my city. So I just for the fact that I don't want to be throwing around where I live exactly. But what I would like to do is just show you is that cities all around the world are erecting this symbol. So what is this? What is this, and what is the Sustainable Development Goals agenda that you see here? So once again, starting to look into it, look a little deeper, and I find out that it is run by the United Nations. And they have this particular goal, and so far what I've seen is that my world leader supports it, and I'm seeing that my country supports it, I'm seeing that my city supports it, and so I started to look into what is this? So when I start to look into the United Nations, I start to wonder and ask questions about what is the UN. The United Nations is an international organization founded in 1945, currently made up of 193 membered states. The UN and its work are guided by the purpose and principles contained in its founding charter. The UN has evolved over the years to keep peace with a rapidly changing world, but one thing has stayed the same. It remains the one place on Earth where all the world's nations can gather together, discuss common problems, find shared solutions that benefit all of humanity. So here it is, where these organizations are all working together, right? And they all are kind of governing where our social economical development goes, right? Now, one particular woman that kept showing up with the World Economic Forum's conferences was a woman by the name of Kristina Georgieva. Now, this woman is the leader or director manager of the IMF, the International Monetary Fund. And what I found out through kind of looking at the economical sides of things is that the IMF is connected to the United Nations through a partnership. I'm going to call it a partnership. It's probably not exactly what it is, with themselves and the World Bank. So whenever Kristina Georgieva talks and whenever they are mentioning changes in and around the world, a lot of the times it has to do with their financial and economical standpoint. In particular, the International Monetary Fund has what's called special drawing rights. It essentially just allows them to draw financial capital from the Federal Reserve, the American Federal Reserve. So really crazy stuff. Like these people, like if you want to talk about the world's most powerful women, she is definitely one of those women. And I mean, she's been doing it. I mean, I'm sure it tells you here how long she's been in service to this company. But she's been doing it for a long ass time. So, anywho, super cool to see a lady in a great position of power. There's actually quite a few really powerful women. So just for all those ladies out there who think that women are treated unequally in the workplace, I would love for them to be able to take an opportunity and just kind of check out these ladies, because man, oh man, when they speak, the world listens. So basically, when you start to dive deeper into Kristina Georgieva and what they want to do in terms of economics, and when you kind of start to hear about them talking about the Great Reset, it essentially starts to sound like they want to reset the economy. So what would it look like if they decided to reset the economy, and how would they plan to do it? And what's interesting is, from what I can gather, from the way that they speak and from the interviews that they've had, they're planning to or looking at creating a central bank digital currency. And, well, what's really interesting about that is when you start to hear the way that they speak about central digital currencies, they use words like the Internet of Things, they use words like distributed ledger technology, And when you start to read and research about cryptocurrencies, you start to see that there are quite a few of cryptocurrencies that utilize either distributed ledger technology or a thing called ISO 20022. Now, one of those particular companies that I want to bring up today, and once again, this is not financial advice, do your own research if you decide to look into this, is a company that's called Ripple. Now, Ripple is a company that owns a cryptocurrency called XRP. Once again, they're currently actually being investigated by the SEC because the SEC has said that they are a security as opposed to a digital asset or a digital currency. I think that court case has a lot to do with a lot of what I'm talking about today in order to create regulatory clarity in and around cryptocurrencies as a whole. I think the entire crypto space, once this court case is over, is going to change so drastically. Anyway, I'll save that for another video. The CEO of Ripple is Brad Garlinghouse, and this man has had many great dinners with the IMF, and I believe he's even been at Davos at one point. I could be mistaken about that. But what I want to point out is Brad's link to the IMF. And so here we have Brad sitting at a table at a conference meeting of some sort. I can't remember what it was. We have the director of monetary markets for IMF. We have chairman Saudi Arabian Monetary Authority. We have chief executive of Hong Kong Monetary Authority. And then here's somebody that is extremely bullish on CBDCs, who really talks a lot about cryptocurrencies, and it is Christina Lagarde. And she is a very powerful person. She is the president of the European Central Bank. I mean, if you want to talk about the world's most powerful woman, she might just be it. But I mean, she's probably toe-to-toe right now with Kristalina Georgieva. So here we have all of these big connections kind of just staring us right in the face. And I don't know for sure, what cryptocurrency they would consider using for a CBDC and if they would actually just create their own as a whole. But what I can start to see is that they're planning to not... Any cryptocurrency that actually manages to get regulatory clarity and is ISO 20022 compliant will most likely be still around. Like they're not going to just disappear overnight like the majority of shitcoins that are out there. And so when you start to look into this a lot deeper, it just really makes you think. Now, the reason why I pull up all of this information isn't so much to drive home conspiracies, but just to kind of let you as the viewer have an opportunity to see that these world leaders that are all getting together, whether it's the G20, the World Economic Forum in Davos, or whether it's the IMF, the United Nations, they're all speaking the same language. And there's something that's going on in regards to the change of the economy. But what I can say is that when you look at the United Nations agenda and or the IMF's direction that they're trying to go, they're always talking about utilizing the private sector in order to be able to propagate the changes that they want to see in the world. I mean, also, when you look at the partnerships of Ripple, you start to notice that they have some amazing world banks that are actually partnered with them in order to create utility. So even just right here, when you look, right here down on the bottom, you'll see Bank of America as a partner. And when you go over to here where I just Googled CBDCs, you see that 4 hours ago, Bank of America says US CBDC would preserve dollar's status as the world reserve currency. I mean, you've got a partnered company, aka Ripple, with the Bank of America, and Ripple is currently going through an SEC case in regards to getting regulatory clarity on whether or not it is or is not a security. all of these things over the years just adds up, and you just start to wonder if that's a coincidence. Alright, so in the next video, what I'm going to do is take the time to talk to you guys about ISO 20022 and how we're going to be changing away from what's called the SWIFT payment rail. The SWIFT payment rail is essentially just what we're using at this current time to be able to create the transactions that we do at stores and restaurants and cross-border payments and so on and so forth. So if you guys have enjoyed this video, please leave a like. It really helps the YouTube algorithms. And if you want to know more about some of these things that I've talked about today in the video, I'm going to leave links to some of the information. And then, if you have any questions, feel free to leave them down in the comments below. Anyway, you guys, take care, and we'll talk to you in the next one.